Welcome to Ministry Mondays with Meg. I'm Meg. I am Reverend Meg Biddle. I am the National Coordinator of Ministry Life and the American Baptist Profile System, and I am currently serving at the American Baptist Home Mission Societies. And this is Ministry Mondays, where I welcome clergy to come and have conversation about what ministry is really like today. Today, I am joined by my friend and colleague, Reverend Justin Thornburgh. Justin, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Yeah, you bet. You bet.
So, would you like to tell everybody? Justin is a multi-vocational pastor, clergy. Would you like to tell everybody a little bit about your ministries that you're currently serving in?
Sure. I currently serve as the pastor of Emerson Avenue Baptist Church here in Indianapolis. It's a small urban congregation, very economically and socially, culturally diverse. Our building is our main ministry. With that, we use the space, and 4 other congregations worship in our building, 2 of which are immigrant congregations. And so I've been there for a little over 9 years now. And so we've been active in the East Side community for 100 years. And we hit 100 years in 2021. So I also serve as a chaplain, very part-time chaplain at an orthopedic hospital. I meet folks pre-op before they go in, spend some time with them before they go back. I am a theater educator. I teach theater to pre-K and kindergarten kids, which is my love. That's
It must be fun.
Oh, I love it. I love it. It's can be a strain on the patients sometimes, but it's wonderful. My undergrad work was in theater, and so I was doing professional theater before I got the call to ministry. And so it's nice to go back to sort of my roots with that. And then my other vocation is that of a death doula or death companion. And I have a company called Thresholds End of Life Accompaniment and Planning. And so we are I am the company.
You are the company.
I am
Okay.
the company, yes. Work with folks as they start thinking about end of life care, and walk with them on that journey.
So has the pandemic, I mean, we've been in this for over 2 years and are hopefully slowly emerging into this endemic stage. Is the pandemic really what led to the need for multi-vocations, or is that?
No, like many small churches, mine, I went from full-time to part-time about a year and a half before the pandemic hit. And then the multi-vocational was, out of necessity. Not necessarily really affected by the pandemic for me, because I was sort of in this stage before the pandemic hit. But yeah, I mean, like when my call first went part-time, I had gotten another part-time job, but it was a grant-funded job, and so it ended after 9 months. And then so since then I sort of was piecemealing things together to sort of
To
match
try and
that
make
other
it through. Yeah.
So
So how long have you been doing the death doula? Because that is very interesting. Like, How long you've
It's
been doing it? What is a death doula?
right. Well, how long I've been doing it is a tough question, because it's something that I've been doing before it had a name. Uh, I've you know part of my story with how I got to that to being a death doula is, back 23 years ago when my dad died. It was quick, but not quick. He had a long-term illness, but then when he had an incident, 24 hours later, he was gone. And so that 24-hour period is sort of set with me where we spent the moments he was lucid trying to get uh, living wills and powers of attorney and advance directives signed. We literally would have somebody at the nurse's station call us as soon as he would wake up enough to be able to sign things. And so, and then, going to the funeral home and sort of being bombarded with everything that happens. And then, jump many years later when I'm a pastor and I'm seeing the same sort of things happening with my congregation. And so I've felt this call to like help people be ready for a long time. It's the calling to doing the actual death doula work came about when I lost one of my contract jobs, and I'm like, okay, I'm tired of hustling for other people. I'm going to hustle for myself,
Right.
in a way.
Absolutely.
And I had this idea of like, what if there was like a coach or somebody that could help people understand advanced directives and powers of attorney and all of this stuff, and help them understand pre-planning, what they can and can't, what their rights are when they're meeting with the funeral directors and pre-planning and all of this stuff. What if there was like a coach? And so I started doing some research and some looking, and I'm like, boom, I run into this thing called death midwifery or death doulas. And there's this whole movement happening. And so to get to the question of what is a death doula, death doulas are holistic in their approach to death and dying. And it's sort of like asking what is a Baptist. You ask one Baptist, they'll tell you something different.
Right.
Because what I've discovered in networking and making lots of friends in this calling is that we all are called sort of to a different aspect of it. There are some folks whose call is to sit vigil with families and to be present in those last moments. There are some whose calling is to education, just to teach classes on, what are these things? What's it mean to one of my friends teaches how to talk about death and dying to kids.
Oh, wow.
And so that's her calling. She's focused on helping people explain death and dying to kids. Another friend is focuses on grief work and stuff for the LGBTQ community, especially the trans community, because they're trans and that's what they feel called to. For me, I feel led to helping folks learn and understand sort of the advanced planning aspects of it, because that's what affected me so much in my early part of my life.
Yeah.
And so I've learned, and I'm still learning, always learning. And I can tell you sort of Indiana's laws and stuff
Right.
for advanced directives, but I'm learning surrounding states as well. So I can help people do that, like what kind of funeral do you want? What kind of disposition do you want? In some places you can have cremation, you can be buried in a traditional vault and casket. You can have a green burial. You could have in California, I think California, Oregon, and Colorado, I know for sure you can have aquamation, which is it was in the news a lot because that's how Bishop Tutu
That's
had
right.
his body disposition. You can have natural organic reduction, human composting. It's called.
My
Um,
daughter wants one of those Viking pyre.
my friend who's does the work with the LGBTQ community did some research in that, and it's like only legal in one state where you can do it.
I'm gonna have to look that up
Yeah,
because
yeah, and I can't remember what that is, but
okay.
so there's all sorts of different, another part of my calling is to help folks. Um, I want to empower loved ones to be able to sit vigil because you don't have to. The other thing is with this holistic approach, um, we've sanitized death and dying so much and medicalized it. You don't have to die in a hospital. You can die at home, and you can die at home surrounded by your loved ones with your dog on your bed. You can do that. That's not against the law. There's nothing that says you have to die in a hospital.
Right.
Um, and so to help folks understand that, to um, to work with them on, well, what do you want your last days and weeks and moments to be like, and to have those conversations and to hold space for it, um, to work with the person that's dying and or the family and loved ones to create a ritual to do, like when the person dies, you know you know but one of the books I've read, one of the early practitioners talked about, one of his early clients loved going to Hawaii and was a surfer. And one of the things that surfers would do when someone died is they'd all get on their boards in the water and throw flowers into the middle of the circle. And he's like, when I go, I want my family to surround my bed and put flowers on me, you
Oh,
know, as sort of a final gesture. And, and to let folks know that, you know, in all 50 states, home funerals are legal. You can have a funeral at home. You don't have to have it at the funeral home.
my great grandmother is buried in the backyard.
Yeah. Yeah. I
It's
mean,
Kentucky, but
right,
she's
right.
buried in the backyard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And I
we put
mean,
a vault over it,
I,
and
I love my in-laws have 8 acres in rural Minnesota. And I'm like,
yeah.
there's a tree there that I want to be buried under.
Hmm.
But, each state has their own laws. In Indiana, if you have a certain amount of property, you can declare part of it a family cemetery. And so, but, yeah, I mean, that's the other fun part is like, with ADHD, I sort of hyper focus. And so like digging into some of these nitty
Yeah.
gritty like laws. But yeah, so that's sort of what death doula is. It's a lot of stuff.
So it
Um,
goes beyond pastoral care because
yeah,
people, I'm assuming, aren't
it's
necessarily
non-medical,
spiritual.
non-sectarian. Yeah, because of my pastoral education and stuff, I can serve that role, but I would still rather, in the context of a death doula, have them be with their own clergy person. So yeah, it's more of an educational companioning. Some folks call themselves death companions
Okay.
or grief companions. Um, yeah, that's a whole another aspect of death doula. Some folks specialize in grief work. Um, uh,
I think that's really important, Justin. What you're saying there is like you would rather, if they're a spiritual person, for them to have
mhm,
um, their own clergy person there, their own spiritual
right.
guide. That you're not there to take somebody's place.
Right.
I think that's a really important part for
Yeah. No,
people.
I'm there to accompany, just
Yeah.
to be with and
Um,
hold space for.
Now, can they have like a hospice person and a death
Yes.
doula?
Yes, yes. In
Okay.
fact, there are some hospices that even have death doulas on staff, um,
Okay.
because death doulas aren't medical.
Right.
So, for any of the medical needs, that's what hospice care is for. Um, and so, yeah, the hospice does that. We do more of the holistic. Um, I mean, you can say spiritual preparation and
Sure.
and stuff, but it's the and and more of uh, the nitty as the hospice focuses on the um, medical and
Okay.
chaplains through the hospice or um, you know social workers through the hospice. We're
Right.
not social workers. We don't carry
Right.
that. So
So if a person or if a family wanted you to do a service, do a
mhm,
something for that person, if they didn't have their
mhm.
own person, would a death doula go ahead and facilitate that? Or
I think it would be up
is
to the
there a
death doula.
line?
No, I don't think so. I think it's a personal decision
Okay.
or a boundaries decision.
Okay. Yeah.
If that were the instant case, um, if I ran into that and somebody wanted me to, I would probably do it. Um, but I don't know. I haven't run into that. Um,
Okay.
but
That one just kind of popped in my
yeah,
head. So,
one
I
of,
have
one of
ADD
my
too. So,
one of my mentors was asked in that class, and they said somebody asked, do you go to the funerals if of folks? And they're like, if I'm invited, you know.
kind of
So
like chaplaincy. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
chaplaincy, I remember we, were often there as somebody was drawing their
hmm
last,
right,
which is a sacred space to
hmm
be allowed into,
right,
but um, didn't go to
yeah,
funerals unless you were specifically
right,
invited to go. And then it was still, you really kind of and step back to think, is this appropriate
right,
for me to be
exactly.
doing that? So
So
this is
yeah, I,
really
I think it would just depend on the relationship and what needs I could discern. You know, like
um so is the relationship part of it, is that the most what part of the death doula,
mhm.
like what part of it brings you the most joy?
For me, it's the empowerment.
Mm.
Um, not just for families to go into the death of a loved one, knowing that things are ready. We're ready when it comes. You know, yeah, it may still be like in my dad's instance, 24 hours, they're gone.
Right.
But there's a grounding, I think, that happens if something like that happens. If you have all of the paperwork ready, if you have, you know, a funeral plan ready, that takes a burden off of the loved ones and allows them to be present
Mhm.
in that time. And I think for me, that's what is important. Um, but also for the person that's dying to be able to make those choices and those decisions, um, to say that this is what I want when I die. I want to be buried,
Yeah.
in my backyard.
Yeah.
If it's
No, I
legal,
agree.
and
I think I agree because it seemed like so often I'm going to go back to that chaplaincy thing, or even when I served as a pastor. By
mhm,
the time you're there, you're introduced a lot of times anyway. It seemed like we were already past all of that. I mean, it was too late a
yeah,
lot of times. Um, we were like at your dad's situation where we've got less than 24 hours and everybody's scrambling to figure out
Right.
everything.
Yeah.
So
And
I
then
could
and then
see.
afterwards, you go into the funeral home, and I have a love-hate relationship with funeral homes.
I hear you.
There are some fantastic funeral directors, but there's so many predatory. You know, I my congregation is poor, and I went in with a family, and they're trying to upsell like this $10,000 casket. I'm like, that's more than this person made in a year. It's like, um, and so to be able to own yourself in that moment,
So you
even
can go in as the death doula and advocate for the
yeah,
family to go, no, you're not going to oversell them.
you
Is
can
that part of your
go.
role?
Part of it, I I don't feel comfortable like going in. I'm not there to make decisions for them.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm there to give them all of the information
Okay.
and say these are your choices, um, so that when you go in, you won't be, you know, you won't be able to be taken advantage of. Um, you'll know, that you can buy your casket at Costco for $500 instead of the $12,000 one they want to sell you. You
And
know,
that's legal.
it's legal in all 50 states. Yeah,
I need to write that down.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know that you could actually, I mean, I knew that they did things like, sell them
Hmm.
at Costco, but
Right.
it
Yeah,
just kind of seems like, yeah.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So I'm assuming, and please correct me
Mhm.
if I'm wrong, but that you wouldn't function as a death doula for perhaps somebody who's already in your congregation boundaries,
Um, I I I
or
would
it
do the
hasn't come up
work.
yet.
I
Mhm.
would. It hasn't come up yet, but I feel that now that I know I have this information, I would do it as their path. I wouldn't do it as they wouldn't pay me for death do the work. I would do it
Right.
in the pastoral role, but I would still give them that information and do that stuff. So I'd use the information in the pastoral role, but
Right.
not as the death doula because I charge fees for the death doula work.
Right. And I feel like knowing knowing you that I can't see you definitely. I can't see you as somebody who'd be like, yeah, I can be your pastor and your death doula, and
Right.
you
Yeah.
just
No.
not, you
No.
just not. So has stepping into this role, becoming this death doula, as well as being Pastor Justin and theater director and all of these and dad and all of
Mhm.
these other things, has that all, has one affected the other? Do you think it's made you a better, more effective?
Yeah, I think it has. Um, Especially in the death work. Um, I'm I've always been one that wants to have my toes in all different ponds because I want to absorb as much education and information as I can.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I think having a finger or toe in all of those ponds helps. But it also, helps in just building relationships with the community. Um, like, I want to focus my work right now on the east side of Indianapolis. We have a lot of stuff going on the east side of Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm really just sort of focusing on this area right now. Um, and by building these relationships, I'm able to, I there's a class I'm working on putting together that comes out of a conversation with actually Molly Grisham. Do you know?
Oh, I
Yeah,
do.
she and I talked, I don't know, several months ago. But it came out of a conversation with that, and then subsequent conversations afterwards. I'm like, okay, this is God saying, this is a class that needs, and it's a class for people our age,
Oh,
Gen X and millennials, whose parents are older and whose parents refuse to talk about it. So how do we talk to our parents about death and dying? Sort of the flip of my friend's class of talking to kids about death and dying, but how
yeah.
do we talk to our parents about death and dying? And how important it is, again, here I am with my pre-planning stuff, one of the greatest gifts you can give your children or your grandchildren or whomever is going to be in charge of all of this is to be ready. I had another conversation with a friend whose family owns a business and has since the 30s. And my friend's grandparents opened it, and now it's his parents' generation that runs it, who are all in their 70s, 80s, and refuse to talk about like a succession plan or anything like that. And he's like, I want the business. I don't want it to go to my crazy guys.
Right. I want this all. Yeah.
I want it. And so, but because of the age or whatever, laws say it would go to everybody equally.
And so part of your role was to like help with overcome that fear of talking about the stigma of talking about
that's
death.
what I'm working on. I'm trying to put this class together of like, how can we sit down with our parents and have this conversation?
I think that's a fantastic idea. And yeah, I think that would be really helpful as someone in my 40s. And to be able to talk about those things. And I mean, because as a pastor, it's a whole different when it's somebody else's, then it just happens and you go with it and the person and but your own. Justin, I think that's brilliant.
And my plan with that is to sort of test it out locally, but then, thanks to the pandemic, we all have access to Zoom and stuff, and many of my colleagues do Zoom classes, and so I'll probably open it up, but I want to test the waters locally first. And then,
absolutely. Yeah, I look forward to hearing more about this. So in all of your ministries, because I believe that each and every one that you have is truly a ministry, where I know you talked about the joy of being, helping someone be ready. Where are other places that you find joy when you're just running from one thing to the next, kind of thing?
Yeah, I find it with my kids.
With your kids.
Yeah. I mean, we hang out a lot and just play and have a good time, and they ground me. They really do. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. I mean, I love their imaginations and their creativity, and just the freedom. And this is why I like teaching the theater to the little kids too. It's just like there's such openness in kids to try things, even if they're scared, to try to go into, these imagination places that can be scary and can be wonderful and can just, and so that's what brings me joy, is being able to go with them into those places.
If we could only hold on to all of that as adults and never ever lose it. I know. So as we kind of wrap up our conversation, which
Mhm.
I hope this is the first of many, because um, uh, I think we'll be hearing more from you and how this ministry grows. If people want to support you
Mhm.
in this ministry, how can they do that?
You can go to www.wecrossthethreshold.com, or you can or you can PayPal me at Celtic Wander. Um, the funds that would go to the PayPal account would go to help support this death work through education, marketing, just everything that goes into running a small business. Um, and so, yeah, that's how you can support. Do that.
Okay. And again,
If you want to learn more about the work I do, you can go to the website or
which is the we cross the
wecrossthethreshold.com. Yeah.
okay. And again, your church is Emerson Avenue
Yes, Baptist
Baptist
in
in
Indianapolis.
Indianapolis. Justin, I am so grateful that you joined me
Yeah,
today
thanks
for
for
this.
inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I do hope that this is the first of many.
Yeah.
Um, and for everybody out there watching, you can catch us Mondays at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we are on Facebook on the American Baptist Home Mission Society's page. We're on YouTube at the American Baptist Home Mission Society page and at ministrylife.org. Thanks for watching.